Yo, what is up, guys? It's your boy Burner here, along with Brad.
What's up, y'all?
And today, guys, we are going to be discussing, of course, not only The Last Dance, but also the news that came out from the NBA talking about how teams are now going to start opening up practice, but now there's a lot of pushback to that due to competitive advantage. So I think we'll start with that story first, Brad. What do you make of this story that NBA teams, some NBA teams are allowed to just due to the whole situation of quarantine life, that some teams are allowed to practice more than others, or teams are allowed to start practicing while other teams are still at stay at home orders?
Well, I think it's all about making sure it's safe to do it. I saw like they mandated that trainers and staff and players will have to wear gloves and masks unless they're actually doing training when they're in the facilities, and no groups of bigger than like four people at a time. So as long as they're being safe about it, I think it's cool. Um, Although I saw that the Atlanta Hawks are pushing back on opening facilities because they don't think it's safe enough yet. Like they want to hear an actual
Mm-hmm.
order from the CDC before they get things rolling. But it's tough because some players have gyms at their houses and other players don't. So you're really like racing against time with keeping these guys in shape and keeping them, acclimated.
Yeah, I mean, when we think about it, we've almost been what, almost was it 2 months, almost a month now? I mean, it's been past a month now.
Like a
Probably
month
gonna
and a
be
half.
a month and a half. So of course, some of these players, like you said, some of them are working out, they're staying diligent, they're keeping in shape, while others, on the other hand, are probably taking advantage of this quarantine life, trying to rest and recover, and aren't really
James
working
Harden.
out. So I mean, if you really think about it, like yeah, when they come back to play, of course there's going to be a lot of injuries. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Obviously, they're going to have playing games and practices to kind of get going before that. But at the same time, it's still the same situation of you're seeing players not really prepared. Not everyone. It's not an equal playing field for some people. And whether or not you can blame that on, well, it's your own fault, it's still a bad situation to have happen to us, because I think that some, like you said, I think they should be allowed to do it. They should be allowed to go into the gyms and work out and do whatever else they need to do. But at the same time, if they're going to be, I don't know what the right word is. I mean, if they're going to be kind of pushing back on the CD, like on the NBA trying to get back into it, I mean, what does it matter for a Hawks team that's not in the playoffs compared to like a Bucks team that is in the playoffs? Like as of right now, like I think that teams that are honestly eliminated from the playoffs already should just stay in quarantine and not play, just due to their trash
Yeah.
play. Just that's the punishment you get for not playing very well. But I mean, that's a harsh thing to say. So I'll just say this: I think that they should be allowed to practice in the gyms. And if you're one of those players that has multiple homes, which I know some of them do, especially the higher echelon players, take advantage of where the stay-at-home orders are really relaxed and go practice and work out there.
Yeah, if I was a player, that's what I would want to do. I would want to get in the gym as fast as possible. But then again, it's tough because you have to be safe, and you don't want to infect your family, and you don't want to infect other people's families. It's just a really, really dicey situation.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just going to be another wait and see. I know that the Lakers have asked the mayor of LA to make it May 8th, I believe, to open gyms and practices again so they can start preparing. But, we'll find out what's going to be going on there. Um, Anything else you want to add to this story, Brad? I don't know if you have any other information that you've read about or anything that you've researched.
Uh, well, pertaining to coronavirus, I just saw that we hit 1 million cases in the U.S. So it doesn't. It seems like it's still going up. So maybe the CDC will push back on the league opening. The league might get a lot of pushback on that.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a wait and see approach. We got a lot of health officials and people corresponding as to what the next procedure is going to be for not only just NBA and sports players, but also the rest of the country, figuring out what the next steps are going to be. I know that some people are pushing for it to be open now, trying to get, uh, you know, trying to go back to work. Obviously,
Trying to
different
hoop.
circumstances for different people, but nevertheless, like you said, it's a wait and see approach. We'll see if NBA players are going to be doing it. I'm sure that players have already been doing it in secret. Now they just want to make it more public. But nevertheless,
Yeah.
that is just speculation. And let's move on to the next story. All right, and now we're going to move on to our next story here on the charts, and that is, of course, The Last Dance. I was gonna put out a video talking about reviewing the first two episodes. I asked Brad for it. He was busy, of course. So when I recorded it, I was like, all right, this is good, this is fire. And then when I rewatched it and kind of like picked my stuff apart, like and my analytics and stuff like that, it was trash. So I decided to wait for Brad to kind of discuss the first four episodes of The Last Dance. I know a lot of them have leaked online, so you can watch more of them. I'm not saying to do that, but
I
let's talk.
definitely wouldn't.
Let's talk about the first four episodes. So let's start with episode one. What did you make of kind of the introduction to The Last Dance?
I thought it was great. I loved how they started with Scottie Pippen, you know, because the world did not understand how good Scottie Pippen was. You know, they're just like, Jordan, he did this. And it's like, oh, yeah, he had Scottie, but it's not Scottie was a top 10 player in the league,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it was nice to see him get his flowers, see a lot of people get respect. That story about his money was insanely fucked up. Like that fool blew me out of like uh but I enjoyed the perspective they gave.
Yeah, I think episode one really set the bar off well for The Last Dance. You know, it kind of introduced the reason why it is called The Last Dance because Phil Jackson gave it that name. He talked about this being the last swan song because we know that Jerry Krause and the owner, especially Jerry Krause at the time, was saying, you know what, I'm trying to rebuild. I'm trying to kind of, let's start this rebuilding process early so we can get the most for the players like a Jordan, a Pippen, whatever other role players that were on that Bulls team, because obviously they weren't going to be able to pay for everybody. I think for another like couple years, and
Yeah.
they wanted to secure a position to where they could easily go into a transition phase from the Jordan Bulls to all right, we're going to rebuild and try and get the best player. So I think they did a good job in introducing there. The Scottie Pippen stuff obviously was very a hotly debated topic because of the fact that you know it was kind of selfish. I feel like for Michael Jordan to call him selfish because we know that Michael Jordan is the top paid player. I think he is the highest paid player ever. I think in history before they got the cap. I'm not sure. You can fact check me on that. I don't sure if that's
I think
true.
so. He was making 33 mil a year during their championship run, like at the height of their run. And Scottie was making like 2 mil. I don't think anyone else was making 33 mil a year.
Yeah, so I mean, we know that Michael Jordan can kind of sit in his castle. I like to call it a castle. You know, people that kind of tell people that don't have money, like, "Hey, why are you not doing this?" So I think that Michael Jordan from his castle was just kind of dictating the situation for Scottie Pippen to just kind of be like, why are you being so selfish? Why are you being so selfish in my championship run where I'm trying to get my sixth ring? Like, why are you not? Why are you not? Backing me up along with the other guys. Like, obviously, I think that Scottie Pippen went a little too far with Jerry Krause. Like, I get that he's a short dude, he's short and fat, but there was probably some vicious attacks that I wish that we were able to kind of catch on
I
camera.
mean, to be fair, can you blame Scottie? Like, he's not getting paid right. He's not getting respected by Jerry Krause because he's going to the media saying, "Yeah, I'm looking to move Scottie." Like, that's disrespectful. He's won you championships. I would like at least give him his respect that he has earned and worked for. And he's not getting recognition from like the fans, the media. He's really didn't get anything.
Yeah, I mean that's just kind of how the media was at that time. But I mean, to be fair, in defense of Jerry Krause, and not in terms of, what he said to Scottie Pippen, and publicly trading him or trying to trade him at this point, I think the defense would be that Scottie Pippen did sign that contract. That was on him. I think figuring out that he was trying to pick security over uh, money at the time, which I don't blame him because he's got a ton of brothers and sisters. He's got a mom and a dad, especially I think two. He's got his dad who was paraplegic, and I think his brother as well was paraplegic. Right? They were both in a wheelchair.
I think so. I know his brother was. I saw something about his brother. I'm not sure about his dad, possibly. Uh,
So
but even
like
even so, he signed the contract. But you can rework it. Like that's been done before, especially once you see his actual value. But Jerry Reinsdorf didn't want to do that because he's about his old ways.
yeah, but I mean like to be fair to Reindorf, like he and to be honest, like let's talk about it in this perspective. Scottie Pippen taking that contract really led the Bulls to be a dynasty, if you really think about it, right? I mean,
For
the
sure,
fact
yeah,
that because I mean, if you think about it, they were able to sign guys like Kukoc, they were able to sign guys like
yeah.
Staley. I'm trying to think of other guys. Who's the guy that was in their second championship run? That drove.
Rodman, uh,
It was a point guard.
point guard, Paxson. No,
The
he was a shooting
Paxson.
guard.
Nevertheless, like it led these guys to sign guys like Dennis Rodman, like you talked about. Many of these players. So to be honest, we can really thank Scottie Pippen for this championship run. I mean, along with other, and we'll talk about that with episode 3 and 4. How we really felt when we were talking about it over text. But nevertheless, it's still an interesting situation to see that we're now kind of getting the inside look as to how this Bulls team was ran. From the time that Doug, like, because to be honest, I never really researched as to why, maybe I'm talking too far ahead, but to why Doug Collins got fired immediately, like, and why Phil Jackson was inserted in as the head coach. Like, I never really understood it at that time because obviously, being like what was it like 3 or 4 years old, you don't really understand that stuff. so
Yeah,
so it's just like realizing that, but just going back to the first 2 episodes about Scotty and MJ. The one thing I didn't like about it was they kind of glorified MJ, which I knew that they were going to do. I mean, obviously it's a documentary about Michael Jordan and The Last Dance, but I want them to kind of get that real authentic Jordan, and I don't think that we've gotten it quite yet, except for some parts, maybe the Isaiah Thomas part.
yeah, yeah,
But in the first 2 episodes, I'll just say from the first 2 episodes, I felt that it was same old Michael Jordan documentary in terms of the way that it's kind of glorifying and evangelizing and you know making Michael Jordan this deity that he's like some sort of god, and we're all just bowing down to his presence. Like, he is a great player, and I'm not trying to deny that, but we kind of got away from what the Last Dance was supposed to be about in the first especially the second episode. I feel like they got away from that and kind of focused more on him as a player, and like Michael Jordan, this great player, scoring 63 points against the Celtics in a sweep.
and he got rewarded for it too. But when LeBron did that, everyone was like, "It doesn't matter. He lost. Empty stats. It doesn't make sense."
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of, I think we talked about this too on text, and we'll go more to it to episodes 3 and 4. It shows the hypocrisy, I feel like, of these NBA writers and people. And I kind of want to bring up an interesting point with you a little bit later into my comparison as to who LeBron James is in terms of like a comparison.
Okay.
So, moving on to the next couple episodes, 3 and 4, we got them talking about Michael Jordan. They're finally building that team around him. They talk about the Doug Collins, give the ball to Michael Jordan, let him go to work. And then we also got the Isaiah Thomas and Bad Boy Pistons shout out in this documentary. And I think Michael Jordan's first championship against the LA Lakers, just like a little bit of it. What did you make of the last 2 episodes that we watched last Sunday, I should say?
Yeah, I liked the last two episodes we got, just because we got to see a little more of the real Michael with the Bad Boys Pistons. I feel like they always draw out the real Michael because he hates them. Like, he has a
Mm-hmm.
real hate for them, probably because they whooped him so many times. Uh, what I didn't like was the way they made it seem that the walk off was the reason. Like, Michael didn't like them. Like, they made that walk off seem like way too big of a deal. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was disrespectful at the time, but it's not like the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, I mean, like looking at some of the hard fouls that the Detroit Pistons did, like I would be mad. Like, I know that that's the reason why Michael Jordan decided to work out. He decided to get Tim Grover and finally build that muscle and build out his frame. And I think the cool thing was is that I didn't realize that his teammates were also involved in that process. We had Scotty over
Yeah.
there at the house. That house is actually being put up for sale, which is kind of sad. Uh,
Oh wow.
which is, I mean, when you look at it inside, I mean, this is kind of off topic, but it's actually really cool looking inside and seeing it and like realizing like, okay, that's where Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, uh, you know Steve Kerr with his black eye from Michael Jordan punching him in the face. Just looking at that whole mansion and just seeing like, damn, this is where everybody came to work out and build their craft and really talk. I kind of want to hear some of the stories of like them talking about the bad boy Pistons when they were working out, be like, man,
Yeah,
I just want to punch Dennis Rodman in the face, or like, God, I just want to make sure, I just want to like cross over Isaiah Thomas so hard that he falls. Like, I want to hear
yeah,
those
yeah.
stories. I wish that we were able to get access to that.
Oh yeah, I know Jordan probably talked about it. I saw because in the documentary, Tim Grover talked about how he would tell Jordan, "Okay, do six," and he knew Jordan would always do more. Like he said, do six, he would do 12, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
bet you in Jordan's head, he's thinking, "I'm not going to do six because I want to get stronger and beat these bad boys Pistons to fuck up. So I'm gonna do 12." He really hated that team. When he won, he said it almost felt better than winning a championship. When he finally beat them.
I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, if you think about beating like your strongest rival, obviously our basketball team wasn't like that because I think we didn't really have like a true rival. But
Yeah,
I could imagine like coaching wise or when you're training with your players, like you can feel the emotion or the energy of your most hated rival. Like this past basketball season when we played Bellevue, like it was a packed house. Like everybody that was anybody was there. We were undefeated the whole season, like home defeat. Like we never lost at home. We haven't lost at home for 2 years, and I could feel kind of the emotions that a Michael Jordan or Isaiah Thomas would feel that like defending your home court or like trying to beat the rivals that you just hate the most. Like that, I can understand, and it's
yeah.
really electrifying to watch. And so, continuing on with this documentary and looking at all this stuff, what did you make of the Dennis Rodman Las Vegas trip?
That was hilarious. That was hilarious. He's like, "Hey, I need a break," and then everybody on Twitter was making jokes about how he started load management.
Yep.
That was funny as hell to me. And then um, the fact that MJ went and got him. Do I really think MJ just showed up to Vegas, said, "Rodman, let's go," and then they left? I don't know. I don't know. All I'm saying is MJ had a gambling addiction. I don't know.
Just rumors, rumors.
Yeah, just rumors. That's another thing about the documentary is they've made MJ seem so clean and like he hasn't done anything. Like in the first, going back to the first two episodes, he said, "Oh yeah, I walked in there, everybody was doing cocaine and weed, drinking alcohol. There was girls here. I didn't want any part of that, so I just left." Like, okay, MJ, okay,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to kind of think about, where Michael Jordan was at this time, and I think even to this day, we know that Michael Jordan's image and brand is always going to be protected because, just like any good corporate figurehead, they don't want this negative press because we know how the social media Twitter storm runs with it, right? Cancel culture,
yeah,
Michael Jordan is over party. Like, there's going to be all these type of hashtags that's usually started by weird groups that start these kind of cancel culture and all this other stuff that I
yeah.
don't agree with necessarily. But um, I think that we have yet to. I mean, to be fair, he did snitch. He snitched on one of his
I was gonna
teammates.
say, I was gonna say he's making himself look perfect, but he's over here snitching on Scott Burrell. Like, come on. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I saw the meme of like Scott Burrell's wife right now, and she's just like,
Yeah, like LeBron looking at Kuzma. Oh my gosh. Scott
yeah,
Burrow was like, "No, don't put that on camera. Come on, man."
yeah, and I just think that it's kind of interesting that we kind of talk about this, and I kind of want to bring up the point now that you brought up the LeBron James. I kind of want to say that LeBron James in today's media is like the middle child in any family.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
reason why I say that is because usually the middle child is, they're trying to get the same attention as the first child, and they're also trying to get the same attention as the youngest. And usually the middle child tries hard to kind of say like, here I am, this is what I've done. He could get straight A's, he could be like the most perfect person, but yet the first child and the second child could be real screw ups. Get busted, get a ticket from the police officer or whatever it is, and but yet the middle child gets goes home late at like 10:01 when he's supposed to be home at 10, and he gets in trouble, right? So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that, and I think that him being the middle child, it's like nothing that he will ever do will ever please the mom and dad, which I'd say
I,
is the NBA media.
just this morning, I saw Skip Bayless tweeting like, "How dare LeBron put himself in the same sentence as Michael Jordan?" Like, bro, are you serious? Have you seen what LeBron has done? He said, "How dare he compare his struggles to MJ's struggles?" And it's he made it sound like the craziest thing ever, but it's true. LeBron, it took him a while to get his first ring. Probably no fault of his own. Didn't have any good coaches. Didn't have good teammates. Went to the finals against a really good Spurs team with Boobie Gibson as his right hand man. So
Don't forget
I
Jamario
don't.
Moon.
And Jamario Ilgauskas. So like it was ridiculous to me that Skip was hating so much. And he said that LeBron has had epic fails and each one has been his fault. How? How? The man was putting up 29 and 9 and 9. It doesn't make any sense. The media just hates him and they always try to prop Jordan up.
Yeah, and it kind of goes on to the theme of the third and fourth episode, which was to kind of not expose. I'm not sure if expose is the right word, but it more to talk about like the triangle offense. It's like once Jordan learned to play we ball instead of me ball, that's when the team completely changed. And something that's not talked about that I saw on Twitter is that it's Paxton's shooting, that the clutch shooting in Game 5 against the what team were they playing? Was it the Pistons at the time, or was it the Lakers? I can't remember.
I think it was the Lakers. I think it was the Lakers.
And his clutch shooting is what won them the game because he kept seeing that he was open on the left hand corner. And so Jordan would drive and kick it out in the triangle offense. And you saw the opportunities that others had and to kind of show. And obviously, Scottie Pippen needed to grow up a little bit as well. Just he was just a
Mm-hmm.
young player at the time. And once he started weight training and once he got past the migraine game, like that's when Scottie Pippen became the Scottie Pippen that we know today.
Yeah, yeah. Jordan was mad about that migraine game too.
Yeah. But
Like,
I mean, if you think about it, they lost by 23. So is it really on Scottie Pippen? I mean, obviously Scottie Pippen's like an 18 point per game scorer or something like that. He's a decent scorer, but still at the same time, you know, you lose by 23, it's because you didn't do your job.
yeah, exactly. I think with the like situation between MJ and Doug Collins, I don't know, man. That I think Doug was just too invested in making MJ, because he said
Mm-hmm.
just give the ball to Michael, get out of the way, and it drove him to getting fired. MJ said him and Doug were like this, but I think he probably called for Doug to be fired because Doug gave him shit about shooting 5 of 15 in Game 4 against the Pistons.
Yeah, and we know at this point that the owner and Kraus were on Michael Jordan's side. I mean, they've always have been. I mean, until that last season, but
Yeah,
we kind of saw that they were like, all right, we kind of like this Phil Jackson guy, and the guy that was next. Oh, God, I don't want to forget the
Tex
guy that
Winter.
Tex Winter is that Tex Winter, right? Like I
Yeah,
don't want to
Tex
forget
Winter.
about him because before even watching this, I knew about him and what he created the offense, and I kind of understood his history. And I'm glad
Mm-hmm.
that he's getting the recognition because he really revolutionized the NBA at this point. And I think that he's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the forgotten guy that gets no credit for it. We kind of credit Phil Jackson with the triangle. Obviously, he probably put his own wrinkles into the triangle, so I'm not trying to discredit Phil. But we kind of forget about Tex Winter and his revolutionary offense at the time that created this Michael Jordan era. So you kind of see
Mm-hmm.
that there's many things that built on to why Michael Jordan was successful and why not even just Michael Jordan, but the Bulls were
Yeah.
successful and why they were a great team. But to me, like what I get frustrated with is the fact that we see like time and time again these people on the ESPN who have nothing to talk about now because there's no sports, so they talk about the same 20 topics 50 times during the week, kind of say like Michael Jordan was the best. He didn't need anybody. He could have beat the whole team behind his back. He could have had no arms and he would still be able to score 50 points on you.
And that's just not true. They had a great team. They had everybody played their role. Everybody knew what they were supposed to do, and they did it well. Paxson led the league in 3 point percentage. Rodman was the league leading rebounder. Scotty was probably the best. He was the best defender in the league. So it's insane to act like Jordan did it by himself, and especially when you learn they didn't start winning until he started passing the rock.
Yeah, and I think we kind of knew this from many other documentaries before, but I think The Last Dance, because there's no sports going on, is really hitting the point home that look, Michael Jordan didn't do anything in the NBA until one, Scottie Pippen came, and worked out and got himself into a great shape and became the number two man that Michael Jordan could trust. And two, until Michael Jordan was introduced into the triangle offense, that's when we saw the revolution of uh, Michael Jordan become, an elevate. Like we finally saw it because he was able to be selfless instead of selfish. Like yes, Michael
Mm-hmm.
Jordan can take the last shot all he wants, but still and I think that people kind of forget it's kind of where you let someone into your project, um, and at school like a science fair project, they come in at the last minute and put their name on it, and everyone's like, oh my god, look what this person did, but they didn't realize that the
Uh-huh.
other person behind was the one that was doing all the slideshows, doing the research to build the slideshow presentation itself, and the other guy takes credit for it. It's like that to
Exactly.
me.
Exactly. See, I think what I think is that the NBA had a plan to market MJ, and the plan worked too well. It worked way too well because, like you said, he's seen as this deity, like a god that can't be touched, that did everything and made no mistakes. But that's just not true. He got whooped by the Bad Boys Pistons and didn't beat them until they got rid of Rick Mahorn and were out of their prime. And he couldn't win until he got Scotty. We saw him drop 60 points in a loss to the Celtics and still get rewarded for it. How does that make sense? If LeBron did that today, people would be calling empty stats. The media would be saying he can't do it by himself. Jordan was clutch. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and like I said, this isn't to take away anything from Michael Jordan. Like I think that he's obviously one of the greatest players to ever do it.
For
And I'm
sure.
not taking it away from his clutchness or anything that, like from Michael Jordan. But at the same time, what I get frustrated with, and I think you get frustrated with it as well, and it's why we kind of agree with these points, is the fact that at least with some of the points, there's some stuff like the Jerry Krause stuff, we'll agree to disagree. But at the same time, it's to me the fact that we can put Michael Jordan on this pedestal, but we can't do it for other players, it makes no sense. Like I get that
Yeah.
Michael Jordan is the ultimate professional. He's a guy that is really good at his game, but we can't forget about the stuff that he also did as well that were really crappy. But yet LeBron James
Mm-hmm.
gets marked for the same stuff. I mean, it's like we're scoring at different levels, even though you're trying to score them the same. You're more
Yeah,
critical of them.
exactly. Yeah. Maybe a lot of old heads don't want to admit that LeBron is better because it's like relinquishing their generation. They want to hold on to MJ as the best.
Yeah. And episodes 3 and 4 were amazing. I don't think I watched the previews for the next two. Do you know what they are?
I didn't watch the previews. I like to go in not knowing what it's about. That way, I'm focused and just dive deep in.
Yeah, and ESPN does a terrible job. I mean, they kind of, I mean, it's what every news source does, where they kind of like bait you into watching the whole show, and then they're like, all right, at the end of the last 10 minutes, we're going to give you the preview of what's going on for next week's episode. So
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on for next week. I'm hoping that we kind of get more into the other championships and really the fact that Michael Jordan retired. Like, I've been harping this since the first episode that me and you did. I want to know, why did Michael Jordan really retire? Like I understand that baseball was part of it, but I think there's a bigger story to there, and I want them to kind of, I want to figure that out
I hope they talk about it. I really do.
because to me that's going to be the biggest story here, from here on out. Because I think that if he didn't retire, what would have been the story about Michael Jordan? Would he have won 8 championships in a row? Like that's a question that many people have said. Like that's what would have happened. So it would have been interesting to see these Houston Rocket teams go against uh,
Ooh.
the Jordan Bulls and figure that out. But of course, it's a different story for a different day. And just quickly, what did you make of the Karl Malone trending stuff? I mean, obviously, we don't have to get into what he did, but what did you make of that? Because
Uh,
that apparently just trended for some reason,
I
after the
think
Last
he
Dance.
might be a part of the next episode. So maybe it's about the Jazz, and that's why he was trending. But yeah, Twitter goes through hate sessions on Karl Malone every year. People figure out what he did, and then they start tweeting hate about him, and everyone else kind of jumps in. Uh, he was a good basketball player, though. Really, really, really good basketball player.
He is a good basketball player. You know, the mailman, he always delivers, except on
That's
Sundays.
all.
But nevertheless, This is going to be our review episode of the Michael Jordan Last Dance and also talking about the NBA and what they're going to be doing for the future here on out. But we want to ask you guys in the comment section, what did you make of the Last Dance so far? Are you guys enjoying it, or are you guys not having a great time watching it? I know that the Last Dance is a very long 10 episode filled Michael Jordan homage, but I'm hoping to get some real Jordan moments, which we have gotten at times. But we'll see from here on out what's going to be going on. And let us know your favorite episode of this series. I think mine's going to have to be the episode with Dennis Rodman going to Las Vegas and going with Carmen Electra. I mean, that to me, that is just the funniest thing in the world. Because, you know, if it was today that Dennis Rodman was doing this, especially with
Man,
the alcoholic beverage, I'll call it,
while he
while
rides
riding
off
on
on a
the
motorcycle
motorcycle, yep, that would
and
just
got a
not fly
police
today.
escort, that's
Yep.
insane.
What's been your favorite episode before we head out?
The Scottie Pippen one. It was dope to see him get respect, and just for everyone in the world to recognize Jordan didn't do it by himself. You know, he had to have a right hand man.
Exactly. And Larsa Pippen, you're wrong for being a little cloud chaser.
Oh, Larsa, yeah, she needs to go somewhere. Take several seats, please.
But anyway, guys, that's going to be it here for the charts, talking about the Last Dance and also the NBA topics on what's going on right now recently in the NBA. Anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. This is Brad, either on the side or up above me. I don't know what happens when it records. It either moves him to the top or moves him to the side. It's annoying. But nevertheless, that is going to be it for us. Brad, do you have any last words before we head out?
LeBron's the GOAT. Don't forget it.
You heard it here first from Brad. Anyway, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.